Hey there, everybody. We're back. And in this episode, it is once again another day off. And I have to be honest, it was a pretty chill day. I started it off playing a game called Another Crab's Treasure, which, if you don't know, is a Souls-like game where you play as a hermit crab whose sole mission is to get his shell back that was stolen by him from a loan shark. There's lots of good humor in this game, lots of good jokes, but also a lot of fun character designs, and it's just got a good sense of humor, and I really appreciate that in a game. Now, I am currently in this level that I don't know exactly the name of it. All I can say is that you are like in sort of a junkyard area, and it's like it looks kind of like green sludge is surrounding you, and you have to like jump on like glass bottles and like fight bad guys and eventually like get to the top of like this giant like thing. I don't know exactly what it is, only to roll down a tube, and then I fought a boss, which was a pretty interesting boss. It was like this like lobster warrior that used chopsticks as a weapon. And I have to appreciate that kind of thoughtful scale in the game where you take like things that are just mundane objects that we use, and then you use them for something dramatic like two swords by this like really threatening and scary looking lobster enemy. And the contrast is just pretty funny when you look at it in a meta sense, and I like that. As I was playing this game, I was listening to a podcast from one of my YouTube channels I follow, Simeon Jimmy, specifically his Treehouse channel, where he was talking with his buddies about various kernels from history, and the topic got really like edgy really fast. Like, this stuff is a bit too edgy for YouTube, that's all I'm gonna say. But because I'm part of like the members program, I was able to get early access to it. Not really sure if this episode's going to be able to be posted on the channel officially after the members broadcast is ended. It seems like a bit too risky, like channel terminating stuff. I'm like, oh, that's a little too edgy. So yeah, I listened to that while I played that game. And then randomly, the YouTube video did an autoplay thing where it went from that podcast to this guy who was talking about like basically AI apocalypse sort of stuff. And what I mean is, apparently there's this guy who like does research into AI based workflows and things like that, and he was claiming in this video that was randomly recommended to me that artificial intelligence is going to go after desk jockey jobs and will have them all covered by 2030, and the only jobs that will be safe will be trade skills like plumbing or being an electrician, stuff like that. But a lot of the jobs that are like desk jobs will practically be like machine ran in the very near future, is what he said. So that's pretty spooky. And he said that we won't have like autonomous humanoid robots that will be able to do our chores and stuff until like late into like the 2040s. So at least we have like less than 20 years of human contact until then, so that's cool. Now, it's gonna go like that, so there we go. Future is wild and spooky, man. Boy, oh boy. Anyways, after listening to that, I did manage to beat that boss, and it was really rewarding, I have to say. If you've ever played a Souls-like game, then you know that feeling when you finally took an enemy down that you've like constantly went against over and over again, and now you've done it. It's a great feeling. Yeah, so that was cool. Afterwards, I was learning this new animation software that I downloaded on my phone called Rough Animator for $8. I wanted to know how to put specifically frames in a brand new layer, because for whatever reason, the program was not letting me put new frames in new layers. So that's definitely something that I had to look up. And I looked up a YouTube tutorial of it, and it was like a lady who was like, "Ooh, look at how quirky I am. Look at me saying quirky things and being quirky. Okay, after my preamble of being quirky for 3 or 4 minutes, now I'm going to tell you about Rough Animator." And by the time she finally got to that, I was like so exhausted by the video. I was like, oh man, maybe I should have just typed the question on Google instead. It's like, I don't know. I feel like if you're making a tutorial online, I mean, I'm sure, like, you know, you're doing the whole thing where you're trying to build your brand, your personality for the online crowd, right? But I think in reality, if someone needs, like, information when they're trying to learn a program, they don't want to go through a preamble of someone talking and you have to scrub the timeline in order to find what you're looking for. The most ideal situation would be, okay, here's the tutorial, here's what you do, boom, 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 there you go, okay, bye. And it's like less than 20 or 30 seconds, you know, not at like 10 minutes where there's unrelated stuff at the beginning and unrelated stuff at the end, and then you have to wad through a bunch of like unrelated stuff throughout the middle. Well, anyways, that tutorial was so exhausting that it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and so I just put down that Rough Animator app for the time being. But then our family friend came home with groceries she got, and she got masa, she got a specific type of taco meat, she even got a tortilla press, a wooden tortilla press, and she got like snacks too, like, yeah, a whole lot. And I made sure to split the bread cost with her. She got Bolios. And my mom is currently on a low-carb diet, so when she split it, we cut out the bread because we know that she's not eating that, so she shouldn't pay for it. Makes sense. Now, I heated up Bolios with butter on the pan and gave them to our family friend, and it was delicious. Afterwards, we had some nice tacos for breakfast. Then our family friend left, and then afterwards I decided to once again go on my UFO binge. I know, right? And I found this guy called Jesse Michaels. I think I've talked about him plenty of times on the channel before. Well, he apparently nabbed an interview with a former presidential advisor literally up to the 11th hour before he died. And what he said was really interesting. Apparently, he handled UAP material with his own hands, and he described it as like being the color of space and being quite heavy, but also very, I think those are the two things I remember. Everything else I'm gonna say is like just interpretation, like, so I'm not gonna say anything more than that. But yeah, that was interesting. Apparently, like, every time they launched nuclear missiles back in the 1960s, they had these they call tagalongs, which was a interesting UAP that would, or unidentified aerial phenomenon, that would appear next to the missile as they were launching it into their testing sites in the ocean area. And it was interesting. I think they even had like footage of like the UAP like following the missile. It was quite fascinating and interesting stuff. And apparently this guy also helped with preventing the Cuban Missile Crisis from getting out of hand. So yeah, this guy was a really important historical figure, and it was really interesting hearing him talk about like his background, how like apparently when he was 14 years old, I don't remember his name by the way right now, but it's like one of the more recent Jesse Michaels videos. I think it's like the title is Presidential Advisors says he held UAP material in his hand. That might be the title. Yeah, I have to look it up. But needless to say, like, when he was 14, he was approached by a military dude who realized that apparently he had a really strong grounding in knowledge of physics. And he wanted him to go prestigious college where for 4 years where he could learn what he was interested in instead of being a helper out on the farmland so he could get involved in more serious work on like the state level. And he agreed. It was really interesting. One of the more interesting notes that I remember from this interview is that apparently a lot of the current scientific studies that are done in public settings, like I think Stanford University or things like that. This is according to this guy who was being interviewed, who was like on death's doornail before he died. Was that apparently a lot of the science that is publicly being taught is actually extremely dated and intentionally done so that the science that is far beyond what we currently understand right now is privately held information by the government in the name of national security and safety to ensure that we always have the edge in technology. So even if like you're like a college student who's like studying physics in a really serious way at like a university and like you're reading all this information, apparently like there's information that is intentionally being withheld from physicists that could like propel our technology significantly forward, but this guy implied that it's being held back because it's in the interests of national security. That's what he said. Like, I'm just reporting back what I heard. I'm not spewing, I mean, maybe it is conspiracy theories, but the fact that it came from a former presidential advisor who was the advisor to John F. Kennedy, among other presidents, does give it a certain weight, you know. Well, anyways, yeah, that was the more interesting thing that I watched today. Then I weed whacked the lawn on the edges where the grass was starting to grow a bit further out, so that way we'd have a nice, cleanly trimmed lawn. And after that, I had dinner with our family friend. We had masa tortillas that were home flattened, so she got the batter and flattened it, then cooked it. It was really good, tasted very fresh. And she used a special kind of meat that she researched on YouTube, a recipe on how to cook it. It was really flavorful meat. It was so good. I loved it. The one thing I didn't love, though, was the salsa that we put on. It was hot. It was so hot. And I know that, you know, when push comes to shove, if you know what I mean, it's gonna burn. But yeah, it burned when it entered in the system. And it's definitely gonna burn later. I think you know what I mean. But it was really good, other than burning my mouth off. I actually drank like 3 cups of milk or 4 cups of milk after doing that because, man, it was so hot. And the milk actually did a good job of cooling my mouth down. The weird thing was, like, when I was drinking it, like, it was like hot, and then when I drank the milk, it was cool. But then when the milk went down my throat and was gone out of my mouth, it was hot again. So I had to so I like drank it and spooned the milk like in my tongue to keep it like there a bit longer to nullify the heat. Crazy. Afterwards, I did some deep breath work and meditation outside. A pretty good session, and it was pretty reflective and relaxing. Helped to calm my mind and help me center and focus on just being present without all these thoughts in my brain yelling at me ad nauseum. And then I decided to go into my bedroom and take a like meditative nap, like listen to binaural beats and kind of just focus on breathing. And I ultimately started to go deep into like a nap-like state before being woken up to go greet my sister and my sister's boyfriend, because tonight we had a little Bible study, which was really good. I thought it went well. If I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't remember exactly what was said in terms of what like was presented, the information. It was very scattered, like different verses in different parts of the Bible, and it was difficult for me to keep track of it. It definitely didn't help that the English that was being used in my copy of the Bible was like Old English, so it was hard for me to kind of keep track. And not only that, I was like just woke up from a nap, so I was like half asleep, so I was having a hard time really getting in tune with what was going on. You know, I was tired. Well, anyways, after that, I said goodbye to my sister, her boyfriend, and then I took my vitamins, and then I started recording this update video. And after I'm done, I'm gonna brush my teeth and go to sleep. And that's my day. I thought it was a pretty chill, pretty relaxed day off. Thought it was pretty good. I go to work tomorrow from 10 to 7. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes, and it's gonna be a great work day. Well, anyways, oh, and I almost forgot to mention, I did laundry. So now I have plenty of clean clothes to choose from for my next 2 days of work in a row. Thanks for listening, and have a great night. Good night, everybody. Bye.